Hi there, I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. If you're feeling drained, hesitant, stuck in self-doubt, or you just have a case of the vlogs, the Art of Badassery podcast is here to help you unleash your mojo once and for all. We'll provide you with tips, techniques, and real-life examples of how you can kick ass in all areas of your life. You'll learn how to flex your mental muscles, rise above fears, and turn setbacks into superpowers. So let's enter the dojo and let's get to work. Welcome to the Art of Badassery podcast. I'm Jenn Cassetta, your Chief Badassery Officer. Friends, today I am just going to do a little episode that I'm going to start calling Boosts of Badassery. And essentially, I'm here to do a little solo episode, not to teach a particular lesson, but to dive in to things that are kind of happening in my life that I feel like if I shared these things, they might help someone else as well. So kind of an update, little stories here and there. And again, hopefully takeaways for you to bring out your own badassery in your life. So always, open to your feedback when you listen to this and let me know if you enjoyed it. Let's dig in. The first topic that seems to be this occurring thread lately for me is about receiving. So, little story. I was on a bike ride with my husband and we were riding back from the beach, stopped in Venice to buy a store that a friend of ours owns. And outside the store, I noticed that there was this crystal on the floor, like a big chunk of crystal. And if you're watching the video, see it with a price tag on it. So it said $38. It was crystal. So I look around, I'm like, oh. So I asked my friend Kelly, did this come out of your store? And right away, I'm thinking, someone tried to steal it out of the store and they dropped it and, whatever. She's like, no, that's not mine, but maybe ask my neighbor in the next door store. So I walk in there and I'm poking around and it's a tiny little store and no one's even there. So I come out of the store and he's coming around in his car to the front of the store. And I say, oh, hey, what's your name? Patango, of course, is the name of the store. And I said, I found this crystal of yours. Here you go. It must be you. Is this yours? He's like, it's yours now. And I said, what? No. I just found it on the sidewalk. It had the, price tag on it and everything. He's like, yep, it's yours. And I just stood there kind of stunned. What? This beautiful crystal? Like, I can't just accept this. He's like, no, I do that sometimes. This is Venice, right? So you meet people like this, things like this just happen, I think. But it was really just a special, beautiful moment where I had to take a breath and say, are you sure? I feel like I need to give you something in exchange for this crystal. I can't just take it. And he's like, no, I sometimes, will just put a crystal out somewhere and the person that finds it is meant to be its owner. He said, sometimes the act of receiving is actually better than giving. And I was like, interesting. We're so conditioned to think about giving, which is a beautiful concept and something that we all do need to think about all the time. But I started to really think about it on a different level. I started to think about the act of receiving as the just flip side of the coin of giving, right? Equal and opposite energies, kind of like the yin and yang theory that I, learned in martial arts. Yin, yang, soft, hard, masculine, feminine, giving, receiving. And all of a sudden, when I started to, really get into that a little bit more, it became easier to accept gifts. And I don't know about you listening, but again, I feel like we've been conditioned to not accept gifts or, especially even in things like compliments. So that's my first takeaway for you today of this little episode is really just the next time someone gives you a compliment, instead of brushing it off or saying, no, 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 or you're so beautiful, just say, thank you. Take a breath and just accept. Accept with your whole heart, accept with your mind, your body, your soul, all of it. And that's what this crystal has been teaching me to do. Thank you, Patango. Also, just, back to that moment in that day, I even automatically said, all right, well, I'm going to go back to the store because he was closing down. And I'm going to buy this sweatshirt that I saw. And I really did. I saw a sweatshirt there a few days before, this purple sweatshirt, and it said heart on. And sometimes I have the humor of a 15-year-old boy. So I thought it was really funny. You have a heart on your sweatshirt. And I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to definitely buy that sweatshirt from him. I still have it, mind you. I think I still will, but not in the vein of having to return this favor. Really just because I like the sweatshirt. So, and I like to buy things from people and companies that are good people, giving people, kind people. We need more of that in the world. So anyway, this is my fluorite. I did a little bit of research, but if anyone out there is like a real crystal fan, I'm not so into them. I don't know too much about them. He told me that it was about receiving, but when you read online, like there's just so many things that you can read. But if anyone out there knows specifically what the fluorite crystal is good for, send me a message. So the other big theme that's kind of going on in my life right now is this Dr. Joe Dispenza work that I've been doing. I leave in less than 48 hours for a 7-day advanced retreat with him and I believe 2,000 other people. I am beyond excited. I've been now, if you're familiar with him, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not, that's okay. I'll explain. But essentially, I started reading his books during the pandemic. The first book I read of his is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Loved it. Highly recommend it. He really goes deep on how we can change our thoughts, which change eventually our life, right? Thoughts lead to feelings lead to experiences. So, his story is incredible. Back in the day, a few decades ago, essentially when he was just starting out as a chiropractor, he got severely injured in a bicycle accident. He was doing a triathlon in Palm Springs, got thrown from his bicycle, hurt himself. And I'm not going to say exactly what happened to his back or his spine because I don't want to quote it and be wrong. But essentially, if you read his books, you'll find out his story. And, in the hospital, bad shape, couldn't walk, and basically was told by the surgeons that he he must have this one particular surgery to put rods, steel rods in his back, et cetera, and he'll never walk again. And he took the second opinion and maybe even a third opinion. People in his life, some of them were telling him, you really should do this, but the doctors were very serious, like, you need to do this surgery. And something in him just said, nope. And he believed that he was going to heal himself. And this is where, again, I don't have all the details, but he found out about some Eastern philosophy, started reading this pamphlet, starting to put these steps in place where he was visualizing his spine coming back together, healing himself through visualization. And little by little, he started to get movement back, started to crawl, started to go in the pool. And next thing you know, he's upright and walking. And today, the man has no pain and his back is completely fine. So that's just one small story. That's how his work has changed people's lives. Obviously, it's his story. It's his origin story, which I always think it's important to learn about when you're learning from someone in particular. Where did this inspiration come from? And it usually comes from a huge, massive takedown in life, right? Which is the reason why Embrace the Suck is the white belt level in the chapter of The Art of Badassery, because usually that's where it begins. That's where things start to change, when we can truly embrace the sad, mad, bad things that are happening in our lives, the trauma, the drama, the disappointments, all of it, because if you use it to your advantage, you can change your life. Anyway, back to his work. So during the pandemic, I read that book first. I love it. During the pandemic, also, I started reading book or listening to books on Audible and not just reading them. So at first I read his book, then I started to listen to it on Audible. And when I'm listening on Audible, I'm usually out walking, which is why I'm able to listen to so many more books. And I would say finish so many more books than if I was reading. I used to just like read at night in bed or, throughout the day, a couple pages here and there. It took me a lot longer. Now I walk every single day and I hit my 5,000 steps, if not more. And I'm doing that usually with listening to an Audible book. So point being, I tend to listen to a book multiple times because because I think I'm more of a visual learner. Reading the books was important. It helped me remember them. When I'm listening to them, it's more difficult, and hence the listening to them multiple times. Little hints there, just in case you want to switch from one modality to the other. Know that we all learn in 3 different ways, right? Through reading, so through visual, seeing the words, through hearing, and through kinesthetic, through touch and feeling. But usually one of those modalities is stronger in each person. So for me, I believe that's visual. But anyway, I'm listening to his books. Then I listened to the second book, which is Becoming Supernatural. And again, mind blowing. People that are doing his work are literally healing themselves of things like cancer, of lacking mindset, of all kinds of disorders, of dis-ease in people's lives. So I started to get really into it. And in January of this past year, so this past January, as you know, I always do a digital vision board that I plaster on all of my screens. In addition to that, I have a dry erase board that sits next to my vision board. And there I have words. So instead of the visual representation, these are words that say the different goals that I want to accomplish that year. On that board, I wrote Deepen Meditations, Dr. Joe Dispenza Retreat, and then just a little bit of his work, like a line from his work. So I honestly didn't think it was going to happen this year. And that's the thing with vision boards, at least for me, right? I'm putting it out there. And even with the intention that it's supposed to be this year, but also open that if it doesn't happen this year, it's going to happen in the near future. I tend to do a visualization of 3 years in advance. That's what I have everyone walk through when they build their vision board. Because just, how life goes sometimes. Sometimes things aren't going to happen. Everything's not going to happen all in 1 year. So if you can build your vision with 3 years out, I think that's a really sustainable way to do it. That's my way to do it. I'm not saying that should be yours, but anyway, that was on the board. So, I'm starting to do his work more and more. I listened to the books, then I got online and I started to download some of his meditations, and I've been doing those now for at least, I would say, 9 months. So the last 9 months, in addition to my morning routine always has a meditation in the beginning. But in addition to that, I was doing an evening meditation of his from his website. You can download, you can buy and download his meditations. However, I'll get to that because I don't necessarily recommend starting out like that because it's kind of wild stuff. It doesn't make sense unless you kind of understand his work. So maybe I would recommend doing like a book first or his online course. Okay. I had started to have these like really interesting experiences in in those meditations, and even had this like very mystical experience. And I haven't told many people this because it sounds kind of nutty, depending on the person on the other side, on the receiving end. So right now you're on the receiving end of this, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So I had one of those experiences where I did his meditation in the evening with this particular breathing technique that he teaches, which again, I know he didn't make this up. It's an Eastern philosophy type of tradition, breathing technique that is used in other Eastern philosophies. So, and it says that it's not like he's taking credit for it. The next morning in my regular meditation, I just happened to linger a few more minutes than I normally would. And all of a sudden, my mind like opened up, my heart opened up. everything just felt like this explosion coming out straight through my head of bliss, ecstasy. It was wild. It was really, really wild. So again, people that are familiar with Kundalini yoga, that is the experience that I had. He doesn't really call it that, but essentially I had that experience where you just feel so connected to source, to God, to spirit, to whatever you want to call that, that it's just a mind-blowing experience. So that was my sign that I'm going to keep going in this work. I'm going to keep going deeper. I'm going to keep deepening my meditations and keep practicing because it was that big of a call. Anywho, so I'm now just finished with his online course to prepare myself for this 7-day retreat. And back to the theme of receiving, I'm also reminding myself that I could be open to receiving gifts during meditation. I could be open to downloads of information or listening to my intuitive voice and trusting myself, trusting the notions and the ideas that I get as well. So that's another way that you can think about receiving in your life. So it's not just, necessarily gifts from other people. It's not necessarily compliments from other people, but it sure can be. It could be acts of service from other people. But here's the other thing. It can also not be from other people, right? It could be almost gifts from the universe, unexpected surprises coming into your life and being open to those things. I think a lot of us are not super tuned in there, or even for me right now, talking about it, I feel like I used to be like scared of surprises because it's the unknown, right? It's the uncertain, living in uncertainty. But the more that I've gone into this work, the more that I'm trusting myself, the more I'm trusting that I can be open to receiving good surprises and good things can happen instead of how I used to live, which was always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Ugh, that feels so heavy just saying it. But does anyone else out there feel like that? Like you're always waiting for kind of something else bad to happen? Well, that's just kind of gone lately for me. And instead, I am open to receiving good. I am open to receiving great surprises and unlimited possibilities. Because that's the thing about this work. And again, if you want to look him up and get into it or ask me any questions about it, I'm happy to share. By the way, by the time this podcast airs, I'll be on the other side of the meditation retreat. So who knows what I'll be doing then? Maybe I'll have my dream life, my dream goal, which is to open a black cat sanctuary. Maybe that'll just like spontaneously happen. Who knows? But my point is, when you're listening to this, I'm on the other side of it, and I'll have so much more to share in my next boost of badassery. But I just want to leave you with these last few thoughts of just like, what could you be open to instead of the worst case scenario, instead of the bad things happening, even in this country, in the world, and all of the negative news? What if you were just open to receiving some good news, expecting what could be an opposite of the other shoe dropping, expecting a new pair of shoes in the mail, expecting unlimited possibilities for everything to turn out in your favor. That's it. So also, next time someone offers you a compliment or a little gift, remember, just say thank you and smile. The smile is making you shut up so you don't start talking, right? Just smile. Close your mouth, breathe it in, take it in, because we have to build the muscle of receiving just as much as we build the muscle of giving. And that's it for today, folks. I hope this was helpful. Let me know. And stay badass. Love you.